the Nifty Show.
And once again, the world of NFTs does not cease to move forward. And, Joel Comm back here on the Nifty Show, along with my co-host, the one and only Riles.
Hey, how's it going?
Looking particularly colorful today, sir.
Yellow as always.
Which, by the way, you would happen to know is my favorite color.
Yes. I didn't really make that connection before, but there you go.
Coincidentally, I dig it. And I think all y'all are going to dig what's going on today because it is a collision of real world gaming, physical gaming, with digital as desktop tabletop RPGs meet NFTs. That rhymes. And it all happens in a place called the Glimmering. The company is GRIPNR, GRIPNR. And they are coming out with a game called The Glimmering. Wait till you find out who these guys are and what they have done, especially if you are a tabletop RPG fanatic. We have with us Mr. Stephen Radney-MacFarland and Mr. Brent McCrossen, co-founders, developers, and chief cooks and bottle washers at GRIPNR. Hello, gentlemen. Welcome to the Nifty Show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Glad that you're here. So let's talk about your backgrounds before we get into what it is you're doing now, because this is going to be especially exciting for people such as Riles, who are big fans of tabletop RPGs.
Yeah, I'm happy to kick it off. Again, thanks for having us out today. My background is predominantly media technology startups. I had a company I still do called Audio Socket, which is a music licensing platform. And after that, we spun out some technologies we patented for kind of audio media tracking, right, for both copyright protection as well as kind of audience measurement stuff. And then about 3 years ago, I started working as the managing director of Revelry Startup Studio. So Revelry, the core company, is a dev shop, 70 people building software for other companies. And Startup Studio was us identifying problems, ideating on solutions, and creating companies for ourselves. And through that Startup Studio, one of my dear friends, Patrick Comer, came to us with this idea for tabletop role-playing games on the blockchain, asked if the studio, we kind of run it through our validation process. And we spent quite a bit of time on it. And the more I got into it, the more excited I got. And we said, look, we'll support this. We'll help you do it. We'll spin it out as a co-founder. And he said, I was hoping to hear you say that because I want you to run it. So got tricked into running another media company, and I'm having more fun than the law should allow.
And Stephen, what about your background?
My background is tabletop role-playing games. I started working professionally and full-time in the industry in 2000 for Wizards of the Coast on organized play and with the release of 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons. Worked there for about 10 years on both 3rd edition and 4th edition D&D. Then I moved over to Paizo Publishing and worked there for about 10 years. Currently, or in the meantime, during the pandemic, I went out on my own. I did a lot of freelance working on my own game called Delve. And then I got the call from Patrick and Brent, and they told me about the project. It fit in very well with my skill set, not only with role-playing game design, but also there's an organized play element there as well. And I have a lot of knowledge and thoughts on that. And so it was a great fit. We've been doing this for nearly a year now. It's going to be a year in December that I started with the company. And it's as Brett says, it's just a great time. It's a fun project. It's an exciting project.
Now, it may be good to lay a little bit of groundwork because while we have an audience of nerds that we absolutely adore, there might not be as huge of an overlap between that kind of nerd and the kind of nerd that plays tabletop role-playing. So perhaps you could sort of give your own description of what tabletop role-playing is and what it is that you've got this experience in.
Yeah, absolutely. Tabletop role-playings basically started in 1974 with the release of Dungeons & Dragons and has splintered off. Dungeons & Dragons, of course, is hugely successful. Anyone who doesn't know what TTRPG is knows what D&D is. and over the years it's morphed, it's changed. So there's a bunch of games in every kind of single sort of genre. I used to work on the Star Wars role-playing game at Wizards of the Coast, as well. So just about you sit around a table, virtual or otherwise, you roll some dice, you go on bold adventures and sort of make fun of each other's imaginary friends. That's it in a nutshell.
So Riles and I are actually we've been in a campaign here in Puerto Rico with some friends, and I've enjoyed the thrills of being a Harangon named Will Pop. He's got a little bit of a British accent. We've had great fun with that.
It has been great fun, but let's bring all of this information together and talk about the Glimmering, because what exactly is this that you've got this amazing looking website for?
Sure. The Glimmering is we call it a world, a campaign. It's basically a storyline using the fifth edition rules through the open game license, which allows other publishers to use the basic rules and present their own games and everything else. So the Glimmering is set in the world of Azua, in a section of it called the Moonstone Empire. Um, Characters our heroes, as it were, each have an NFT. We just launched the first phase of our Genesis collection NFTs. You're going to play some games. You're going to advance and level. So your NFT is going to morph based on that play.
On the world of light and
Oh
And
wow!
we have a trailer.
Yeah, trailer.
We do actually. I'm gonna hit it, and I'll mute it because I just want the visuals.
beyond the world of light and shadow. Danger.
Oh, I can't. It
Oh,
looks really cool though.
it is. Yeah.
You know what, Chris? I'm going to have you in post production kind of just play that over here as the guys are talking because it looks really badass.
And as you go on adventures, you'll raise up in level just as if you would, sitting in your friend's house every weekend, and you'll get treasures, which will also be NFTs that you can, collect and equip to your character, or trade and sell if you want. So it's a really interesting. Web3 has given us tools that I always wish I had back when I worked in organized play back in my early days of working in game design. And so, in a lot of ways, this is like fulfilling a dream that I've had for about 20 years now.
Now, just so that we have a perfect understanding of what the Glimmering is, tell me when or if I'm wrong when I reiterate this back to you.
Sure.
The Glimmering is a setting that you have built for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition that anybody can play, and you have these NFT heroes that can serve as player characters. When you talk about these characters going on adventures, is that in reference to people playing 5th edition in the Glimmering setting, or is there some other functionality that might be referring to?
No, that's exactly right. You would play 5th edition in the way that you would normally play it, either online through a virtual tabletop or Zoom and Theater of the Mind. You can play it. You can get together a group of buddies and play it in a house. You will basically sanction those events. You will report those events, and then you'll get your loot.
So you set up a form of sort of informally organized play where you can have groups of friends getting together to play in the Glimmering with these NFT characters, but then they come back and report the results of their adventures and campaigns. To what ends? Is there a progression system for the characters?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's the same kind of progression system you would expect. You raise up in levels. Um, as you go up in levels, that will be reflected on your NFT. You'll like we've got a level on there. As soon as you reach second, your character will now be a second level, and so on. So it's uh, it's basically a way for you to make the kind of stuff that goes on in your game table on paper. This is a way to track it through the chain.
Which is a really great idea, right? It's an excellent use of blockchain technology because it's the ultimate database, and it's just it's immutable and it's a perfect ledger. Now I see here that your NFTs are on Polygon. So that means gas fees are relatively insignificant. Speed is a little bit faster. Are there any other reasons that you decided to go with Polygon?
One of the primary reasons is that all the data for our player character, our hero NFTs, is on chain, and it needs to be, right? Because as you play the game outcomes impact your character, and your character's stats start to change over time. And at the end of the gameplay, all of those outcomes are logged back onto the blockchain. So when we were building the project, our CTO Luke, I mean, we spent a lot of time. We had a lot of internal debate on the right chain to build on, and ultimately, one of the main reasons we went with Polygon was because doing it on an L1 like Ethereum and reporting game outcomes back to the chain every time a game concludes would just be so prohibitively expensive that even the most wealthy among us would never play it, right? So with Polygon, to your earlier comment, Joel, the gas is almost free, right? I mean, it's pennies to do these types of transactions on that the Polygon chain.
I love the attitude on the website. What began with a party of 5 is now a crew of 23. We'll continue to kidnap great people to help build our technology, grind on artwork, design the game experience world, and foster a global community of adventurers and NFT enthusiasts. See, this is the promise of NFTs that we look for in the projects we want to feature, because you're not a group of guys who are like, hey, there's money in NFTs, let's make some and build something around it. No, you guys have been building epic stuff that people love, that is time tested and proven for years now, and you're finding a way to marry Web3 in this NFT world to make those experiences better.
That's exactly it.
Absolutely. I mean, it also has some other benefits as well. Like, I've worked in the tabletop RPG industry for a number of years. We can put together more progressive royalty structures for not only our artists and our designers. There could be a lot of value just for the GMs that spend a lot of time, crafting and presenting adventures. And so there's a monetization aspect for creators and participants that is, in my opinion, pretty brilliant, that we can latch onto.
So pertaining specifically to the use case that we're after here, which is recording, immortalizing the adventures of a character on the blockchain, and including with that character's progress. You mentioned on the website that even the most common character NFTs can become more valuable through play. But what is to stop somebody from somehow cheesing or exploiting the system and power leveling themselves to 20 faster than should be possible?
Well, we're designing basically a system that has fraud prevention built within it. So basically, if we see sort of fraudulent play patterns, we'll go and investigate. The other thing is we get to basically gatekeep, the amount of adventures that come out over time, and so we can help with that progression as well, which gives folks who maybe are busy within the course of a month a good amount of time to catch up, as it were. We're also having aspects of it that allow individual creators and GMs to come into the system. So we're all building to prevent that type of fraud.
That's good to know. Go ahead, Zach.
I want to know
Riles.
if you're able to show us some of the tools that have been built for GMs and players, or what the roadmap is for those utilities being released.
Yeah, the roadmap for that is near term. So all of the UI and the UX designs for the Play on Chain platform and interface have already been built, and now the tech team is working on all the back end. So I don't have the ability to pull up those designs right now, I don't think, and share them with my screen. We could certainly share them with you after the fact. If you wanted to post production slide some in there, you could. But the way that, if I could explain it to you and you visualize the way that the platform works, the initial, kind of grand door opens and you enter the hall. And that hall is a place where you as a player can connect your wallet. You can see your hero NFTs. You can attach your certain equipment to it. You can look at, from there, you can look at tables that are open. Who is the game master that's at that table and going to run that game? what time is that game going to run? What kind of content are they running? And what other players may have already booked a seat at that table for next Sunday at 6 p.m. And you can also peruse those other players' NFTs. Who are they? What characters are they intending to play with? How are those characters equipped, etc. Right?
As I'm looking here at the characters, the archetypes are popping out all over the place, and I feel like I've missed the minting of these. Is it minted out, or can you still
You
mint these?
didn't miss it entirely. You missed phase one, right? So it's a 10,000 collection. And what we did on Friday is we offered just 100 for minting to our most kind of active community members. So really, Stephen has already created games that you can play now. Obviously, it's all done off chain, right? But he's built a number of adventures in the world. One called Tower of Power, the other one called A Dark and Stormy Night. So the people in our community that have already kind of interacted with those adventures that Stephen created, we gave them access to mint first. And the logic behind that was we need people to kind of play test the UI, right, and the platform itself. And if we minted out a 10,000 collection to, let's call it 3,000 people, our ability to do that beta testing in a really white glove, extremely cared for type of service was going to be nearly impossible. So phase one opened Friday and sold out pretty much immediately. And we will be opening another phase later this year to add in more testers of the system, with the full mint out objective being around February, which is probably perfectly timed to I know a D&D has a new movie that's coming out in March, right? So it's not intended to be like just for that purpose, but that's kind of how we see the timeline of the full 10,000 collection rolling out. And what you're seeing in the complexity of the artwork, right? It's what's different about this project compared to a lot of what we're used to seeing is that this world has 8 ancestries in 12 different classes. So all the artwork looks completely different, right? A human from an orc obviously needs to look different. And it's hand drawn. And what's really mind blowing to me is that there are 43,000 individual hand drawn assets that make up this collection, right?
Wow.
Our lead artist is a guy that goes by Angry Blue. His real name is Justin. His work is hanging in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Melvin's, Foo Fighters, Metallica, like pretty much any concert poster you've seen, he's probably done one for that band. His right-hand man on the Graphicon, also very much in the kind of rock and roll art side of illustration. And then the lead colorist is a guy named John, who is credited on pretty much every Marvel and DC comic that's rolled out over the last decade. And at the height of this, when we were starting to create the visual assets, I mean, first we just hired Justin thinking he could do it. And within 48 hours, he's like, absolutely not. There's no way you're shipping this product with this complexity anytime with just me. So we brought on the Graphicon and John. And then at the height of all the art creation, at one point we had 8 artists on staff that were, it was almost like a factory. Again, 43,000 hand-drawn assets. It was extremely complex. My friend Gerard that owns Revelry, the startup studio that I managed and we spun this out of, he called me one day. He's like, there's no way that the computers are going to be able to generate these layers. It's way too complex. And on Friday night around 11 o'clock, after we sold out phase one, I sent him a text and reminded him how wrong he was. But I was worried because this is not easy stuff to do. I mean, you're looking at it,
No,
you get a sense, right?
this is ambitious. If you're listening to the audio version, make sure you go to the Bad Crypto podcast channel that's got both Bad Crypto and Nifty Show episodes on there, so you can see some of this artwork, or just go to theglimmering.com/collection, where you can see the NFTs. These are not your traditional profile pictures, right, that are just front facing or just the head looking sideways. These are characters that are fleshed out in action, that look like they're in action, right? They're not just looking at you. They're doing something. There's combat taking place. They're getting ready to, clash swords or fire off some spells. So if somebody nobody's missed this, then they can jump in here by going to theglimmering.com and join your Discord or your Twitter. I see the price of them was just 250 Matic. That's not
Right.
bad for one of these beautiful pieces.
Yeah, it was priced at 250 Maddox on Friday. That was about 200 USD. And the easiest way to get involved is, like you said, go first check out the project on theglimmering.com. then into the community. And if you want to mint, I mean, ultimately what we're trying to do is optimize for people who want to play the game, because that's what we're building. We're building a Web3 gaming company and optimizing more for those folks and pure collectors versus just pure speculators. So the number one way to be guaranteed access to the next mint phase is to show up and play the one shot that Stephen created called Tower of Power. It only takes an hour to run. It's super easy. And more importantly, it's extremely fun, whether you've never played tabletop games before or if you're a lifelong fanatic. And when you show up and when you play, then you get instant access to the phase that comes next.
1 hour in the Tower of Power. Riles, I'll let you wrap it up here with one final brilliant question.
Oh, I have less of a question and more of an observation, because I've noticed that this has been a rare instance where we've gotten to ask more questions that pertain to the actual use case of this Web3 project than questions pertaining to how it's an NFT and what chain it's on. And of course, we got that information, but it's nice to be able to spend more time focusing on what the real value and real utility of this thing is. It makes it stand out as a project that's been developed in this space.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm humbled to hear that. I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, I mean that's coming from a lifelong gamer there who's passionate about building games in Web3 that are fun first, and so that's what you guys are doing. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing with us today. We really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for your time. Welcome back from vacation.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
I can't help but think that that we may need to run through the Tower of Power ourselves. The two of us.
I think so.
If you have our contact information, if you hit me up, I will personally make that happen. I'm sure Stephen would be happy to support that effort too.
Absolutely. Just
Well,
don't send me a nasty email when your character dies.
All right, guys,
Oh, he said when.
hang out in the green room for just a second as we finish up here. Riles, I have a quest for you. You are in a maze of twisty passages, and only one of them leads to the exit. What are you going to do?
I don't want to get eaten by a grue. Can I think about this?
Or
Keep it nifty.
Yeah, keep it nifty.
Looking into the future, what do we see? It's lined with digital collectibles, we call them NFTs. Games, trading cards, digital art, and those crypto kitties. Joel and Zach are the hosts, you'll know. Joel and Zach say this will blow. They're locked and loaded, so ready, set, go! It's the Nifty, really kind of spiffy. The Nifty Show.